Hello everyone and welcome to the Retail Talks by Yango Tech. Today we are talking all things retail media and our guest today is MBE Sohail Nawaz, who is the head of retail media in the Landmark Group and the former chief digital officer of Khaliji Times. With us as well is Evgeny Pavlov of Yango Ads. Can you say a few words about yourself?
Yeah. Hi guys, my name is Evgeny and I'm leading Yango advertising technology here in Middle East and Africa region. Working closely together with Evgeny because we have a common point of interest, which is retail business, and that's the main reason why Sohail is here with us. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you guys, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. As you said, introduce me, Sohail Nawaz. I head up the retail media division for Landmark. Been in the region, this is my 11th year. I was only ever coming for 1 year, so I'm like 11 years into my first year. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to sort of unpack some of the areas you want to get into.
We are newcomers, just 2.5 years in the region, but it's already something for me.
Yeah,
like
sure.
very long period for me. But Evgeny, about you?
My name is Evgeny and I run Yango Tech. So we enable mostly grocery retailers at the moment and all the other retailers in the future across I think now more than 11 countries. Nice. With our technologies. And I think we are empowering over 250,000 of daily online orders, and of course the retail media subject is of a great interest for us, as most of the companies all around the world, not surprisingly, are asking us about what to do on this front, how to navigate this industry, and we're very excited for the conversation today. Let's do really quick introduction before we go into the topics of our today's conversation, which is obviously the retail media, and we are going to speak briefly about general understanding of retail media, then about the execution, and about the market specifics of the retail media in the Middle East. And Sohail, tell us, what is the retail media and how does it differ from the traditional advertising generally? So what would you share with us on this?
When you talk about traditional advertising, you've got to really put that into a time frame, right? And what does traditional advertising mean? So my nickname, by the way, at work is Sahailosaurus. I am quite old.
Wow.
So I remember, I'm going to take you back to a time where it was pre-internet, late 1980s, early 1990s, where we used to talk about traditional advertising was either above the line or below the line, or stimulative advertising or directive advertising. And what does that mean? That meant branding budgets would be spent to stimulate new users, new customers, to remember the brand, right? So big budgets were spent on TV, radio, outdoor. And this is what we used to call then pre-internet stimulative advertising, right? Because it stimulates the person to think of the brand when they need to use the brand. Mm-hmm. The challenge was trying to blend the two in order that it worked so well that you got the uplift in revenue, right? So, this is where we coined that phrase. The advertisers used to say, I know 50% of my advertising works, but I don't know which 50%, because it wasn't an exact science, right? And then if you move forward, the digital era came. Internet, late 90s. And then we saw this explosion of more tech and ad tech and sort of trying to track customer journeys and understanding those customer journeys and then placing ads somewhere within those journeys on the hope that you would get some kind of conversion. Right? And then fast forward now, we've come to retail media. It's really an evolution of all those processes, right? So when we talk about traditional advertising, we would really need to define what that meant, because now we're at a stage within this evolution where when we talk about retail media, this is the opportunity for brands and advertisers to partner with retailers, understand the customer journey, and target that journey at specific elements of that journey, specifically when there's a high intent to purchase, and serve a very relevant ad at the right time to the right person on the right channel. So now we've got an exact science by using zero and first party data to have highly targeted, highly personalized ads at a point in the journey when there's a high intent to purchase. So I think hopefully that sort of explains where I've come from and where the advertising world has been and where it is now. The beauty of retail media, if we talk about the funnel, you can have a full funnel approach to it, right? When you look at some of the campaigns that you can run. So, for example, you can have a look at running campaigns on site. You can, through use some kind of ID graph or ID solution, to be able to target those users off-site and bring them back into the ecosystem. You can then also target the same users when they come into store. So whether it's a brand lift that you're after or whether it's actual performance down the bottom end of the funnel, retail media works across all the different elements of the funnel.
So when you think about retail media, you think about full funnel.
Correct.
For advertisers.
Correct.
I think one of the thoughts which at least I derived from this is that you correct me if I'm wrong, can I say that the traditional advertisement is the hope of the conversion, while
Correct.
the modern retail media advertisement is the certainty of the conversion?
Certainty and measurable.
Great positioning, I think.
What does that mean really for the brands and for the brand, building the brand image? So these are essentially the superpowers and super tools, being in the right place, in the right time, understanding the purchase intention. So what does that mean for the brand image, and how can the brands actually capitalize on that?
Well, if we look at the tradition of how have brands traditionally worked with retailers, and bearing in mind retailers like ourselves, Landmark, as Jenny has said, over 2,000 stores. We have hundreds of different what we call endemic brands. So these are brands that we've been working with for many years. We're a 50-year-old company, right? So the big brands that I'm talking about, we've worked for them with them for many years, and the process is we will go probably annually, we'll go and have a business conversation, and that business conversation is, we want to move X amount of units. We'll review the previous year and we'll say, okay, this year, let's. I won't start mentioning brands because I'm not sponsored, but let's just say a big sports brand that we are selling throughout our stores with one of our concepts. Let's take Centrepoint, for example. Now, traditionally, there will be a conversation either annually or biannually with that big brand, and they would have a discussion around how much budget they want to give us in order to move a certain amount of product, right? Trade budgets.
Trade marketing budgets, right?
Trade budgets. Now, traditionally, we would have a conversation around, okay, this much allocation, our expectation, joint sort of, JBP, joint sort of business plan. So within that plan, we would highlight what kind of products we want to move, what numbers we want to move, and then there would be a discussion around at what point, what locations within the store we would store those, those products in, and across how many stores and location within the store, and all of that conversation is baked in to the whole process of making sure that the partnership delivers what we want and what they want. Where we're going from that now is that we've got extra options for those business plans to explore further on site, for example, right? So now we can have a whole conversation around how do we now further boost those products on site and track our users looking at those products but not purchasing, and then track those same users off-site and then target them with the same branded ad to bring them back into the ecosystem, and then obviously highlight that we can target to get that purchase. So ultimately what we're doing is we're saying to our existing brands that we have other opportunities now for you to increase the unit sales on an annual, quarterly basis. Now, the conversation is, how do we now want to have additional budgets to explore additional channels to give you extra volume, which meets your KPIs, right? So that's how we're using retail media to develop further and deeper relationships with our current brands, our endemic brands, and giving them the opportunity to explore how they can grow their base.
How it may looks like for customers? Like for me, sounds like too many ad slots.
And I'll give you an analogy from a previous publishing world that I used to live in, right? And I was leading the digital transformation of you mentioned the brand earlier, but and in publishing per se, there's a standard when we look at publishing, when we look at news websites, which should be 70% content to 30% ads. News. And that's where you sacrifice customer experience for short-term gain on what what has been described in the industry as I can't remember the guy that did this. I think it was Raj, but he came up with a term called enshittification. Now that term is where you have a situation where the number of ads far exceed what the customers will tolerate because it's disruption. So coming back to your point, how does that affect a user? The users will they'll start to drop because the disruption is high, but the short-term revenue gain is also high. But the long-term customer engagement is what you're risking. So again, at Landmark, we have a very clear policy in terms of the number of ads that we will run, the slots where we'll run them, right? And it won't go beyond that, because what we've got at the center of what we're building is the customer journey. The revenue is important, but the revenue will come. The customer lifetime value is a key criteria in that. So we will never get to a point where your weightage of ads to relevant content will ever be disproportionate.
So keeping the right balance could be beneficial for the brands,
correct,
for the retailers, and
correct,
for the customers.
Correct, absolutely.
So interesting. I just recently had a conversation with one of our team members who is in analytical team and in charge of the design and the upsells algorithm. And this is actually one of the points which he mentioned when I was asking him about what are the main complexities in designing the algorithms with using these AI tools and everything. And that's exactly what he mentioned. He said, like, in the short term, you can actually create quite a lot of upsells. And some of the companies with whom we work, they generate up to 30% of their revenue from the upsells and the recommendations, which is a tremendous amount, right? Yeah. But then how do you continuously do that on the long term? And that was one of the aspects which he mentioned, that you must stay relevant to the customer, to the user. And the moment where the push becomes like sort of a abuse of the attention is like sort of the modern currency, the abuse of the attention of the user, that's the moment when you're risking to lose everything. That's why it's so important to really have the long-term view and approach everything with the professionalism, with the in-depth understanding of the underlying mechanics. And that brings me essentially to the next question, right? We seem to understand and come to agreement on what's important and how it works and the mechanics of that. But when you actually execute this, being practical, right? What are the main challenges which you see retailers face when they are trying to execute on these methodologies, when they're trying to implement these methodologies and these mechanics? How do they face them, and what would you recommend?
The challenges around understanding: are you going to buy, are you going to build, are you going to partner? If you're going to partner, you then have to have a process that's robust enough to make sure you choose the right partner that not only helps you launch, but then helps you unlock those commercial unlocks that you need when you launch to get you to phase 2.
It was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about what have we been through since we've been doing, the last 6 to 9 months. This is the process that we've been following.
In your case specifically, I hear that when you're thinking about retail media, you're just not stuck with ad revenue. You're thinking about e-com revenue and ad revenue simultaneously, right?
We've come from the publishing world. So we understand the nuances, we understand the pitfalls, and I covered some of them earlier around having that. And you know, a great question around the number of ads that a user can see that potentially might be non-relevant. But if we can add value to show actually what we're doing, again, we talked about the example of rules-based targeting. If we can have rules-based targeting come in and we define the user groups, and we can actually grow our e-com revenue, and we can grow our trade budgets, because now we have different channels that we can offer our partners.
For me, it's the most important statement that retail media can boost e-com revenue.
Correct.
And can boost trade marketing budget.
Correct.
So it's very important, crucial here.
Correct. And then there's revenue streams around data. We haven't talked about sort of, data clean rooms, right? So if you've got data from, let's say, for example, we have 20 plus brands, right? Let's say one of the large banks wants to come in and start modeling our data in a safe environment, in a data privacy compliant way. We can now make that data available for modeling and generate a revenue stream from that, quite a healthy revenue stream.
Yeah.
Right? So there's all these different unlocks that link back to retail media, because the heart of retail media is data. The heart of what you need to do with that, the foundation of what you need to do with that data is centralize that data and segment that data. Then you can make those segments available for the market to access, but you can also make the data available in a privacy compliant data clean room and do data collaboration or data modeling, which unlocks another set of revenue. So it's not just one single silo of revenue, it's connected.
True. Keep it in mind, please. It's important.
What are the most interesting facts, maybe, or something that you can share with our audience about specifically the local audience in the Middle East, or maybe even more precise? So what are the differences between the consumer behaviors in, say, Saudi and the Emirates, and as you mentioned, Bahrain, for example?
Bahrain is, let's talk about the MENA region and the nuances around the MENA region, or the GCC, for example, right? So Bahrain is very small. It's about 1.6 million in terms of its sort of head of population. UAE, I think, is just over 10 million, and then Saudi is around 30 million, right? So, and again, the different sort of countries within the sort of GCC, they have different consumers patterns, different shopping behaviors. I think one of the things that struck me when I first came here, coming from sort of London, was around the peaks and troughs of the business year, right? So we have to wonder, it's so diverse, and there's so many cultures here. When you think about the different shopping patterns that are linked to the different festivals. So if you think about Ramadan, right? So Ramadan, there's fasting that goes on for a month. That we go to half day in terms of the work day. With respect to the buying patterns pre, during, and post Ramadan, there's lots of opportunities within that period. We've just had Diwali again. If to understand the nuance, people, the Diwali festival, again, understanding that the purchase of gold in this period is huge, probably the biggest time in the year that gold gets purchased.
That's the reason that gold is booming now.
Potentially. And then you have Christmas holidays, all right? So everybody leaves, or most of the expat community leaves Dubai around Christmas. So when you're flowing your revenue for December, only flow revenue for the first 2 weeks. So understanding those peaks and the troughs, again, you have the summer period in this region where a lot of people leave for the summer because of the humidity and the heat. So that has an impact on any business that wants to operate within this region, because you have to understand those peaks and troughs and those flows, and flow your revenue accordingly, right? So that's one of the the big learning lessons since I've been here.
I think that's
controlling a P&L.
Definitely important factor. But I think it's not only about controlling the revenue, but it's probably also about using the advertisement tools. I would have thought that obviously, given that in summer it is very different audience is in this region, that means that different ads should be deployed and different tools can be deployed, and as well as during Ramadan or during the different festive seasons, you should be promoting, the retailers should be promoting different products, and then they can take advantage of the trade budget and market budgets of the specific vendors. Do you see that the local companies and also the international companies who are operating here, they have adopted that, or you see that they still have a lot to learn to operate here efficiently?
We're always learning. Everybody's always learning. Somebody like myself who's been here just over a decade, I have people who've, my colleagues have been here for 25 years. Same story as me, only ever coming for a year, and then, they're 25 years into the first year, and I'm 11 years into mine. So you're constantly learning, and we never stop learning in this region. I mean, just to give you an example, when we talk about Landmark, we have, our Ramadan season, we have our sales season, it's a constant cycle, right? And we're working 3 months ahead. So when coming back to your point around content and what ads to run and the shoots that we do, we start that process 3 months prior to the actual period starting, right? So you're constantly, just as you're finishing, the sale period now, we'll be gearing up for Ramadan. And when we finish Ramadan, then we'll be gearing up for something else. And that links back to revenue, right? Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to maximize on those sort of peaks and troughs of business, which link back to key trading periods, right? Key trading periods here being, sort of from September through to March and April. And so really understanding what products you need to bring to market, how does that impact the content that you want to serve? How do you serve relevant content to different user groups in order to have relevant messages, relevant channels, relevant time, and unlock that revenue potential that sits here across many different areas?
Do you agree that summer is completely dead period?
I don't think it's completely dead. Is it, let's say, for example, if you compare it to some of the other quarters, it's not as impactful. It's there is again, it's a common myth that this everybody leaves and it's completely dead. No, yeah. I disagree that it's completely dead. I think you have to budget when you're flowing your revenues. You have to have that in consideration, that it won't be a Q3 or a Q4. Because like I said earlier, September to really the end of March is key trading periods in this region. However, there is, you can still have good quarters that go across the summer, but you just might need to change, if you change your approach, air conditioning companies as an example, right? When we were at sort of, previous publisher of mine, and then we would go out and look for products and services, pest control, air conditioning. These are all high demand within that summer period. So I think as a business, you need to understand, how does your approach change in those quarters? And then how does that flick when you go into, main trading seasons?
So I completely disagree that summer is a dead period.
Agreed.
I see a lot of people, even sometimes on the streets during evenings, for example.
Correct.
So I really believe that the best time to start do things seriously, it's during summertime.
Correct.
Because somewhere in September you will be ready with a good connection.
Correct.
So please, guys, don't waste your time in summer.
And it's also a great time to start testing MVPs, right? So
exactly.
What we were doing, we would test stuff out, because we used to, take different innovations that we would try out, and we would try it in the summer, because then we knew, we could quickly learn and then adapt and then
safe period to
correct,
test something.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Very interesting period, I think, in this country, which we experienced was Ramadan, and I wanted to share like a bit of our experience. We very much looking at the online orders, right? Yeah. And when we initially came into this region, we were thinking that Ramadan is going to be very slow in terms of the total volume of the online orders, etc. Specifically,
not
absolutely not the case. But they think the consumers' consumption pattern changes very much. Especially there is in the online orders, there is a massive spike right before people are breaking their fast, because they need to, especially when they need to order the groceries, right? So all the operators, they need to plan to have enough couriers to fulfill the demand and to deliver in time. And especially, I think when people are breaking their fast, this is so crucial to deliver in time. So the quality expectations are even higher, and the amount of the frustration if the operations are not perfectly streamlined is higher. So that was a very important finding. What do you see retailers in other, especially, I mean, you have great experience in apparel market as well as Landmark operates quite a lot of apparel outlets. What do you see in consumers' patterns during this period in this sector?
What you have is, if we look at the sort of consumer traits, it's very, very high mobile penetration here. One of the highest, if not the highest in the world when we come to social media penetration. When we talk about family conscious but brand aware, right? So value conscious, sorry, but brand aware. Family orientated purchase decisions. Okay, so you need to understand these consumer traits to be able to say, okay, then how do we unlock those consumer traits? And coming back to your question around Ramadan, pre-Ramadan, we're already getting ready for Ramadan, right? We're getting ready for Ramadan weeks before Ramadan happens. We're grocery shopping, so grocery goes up. We start stocking up on rice and oils and lentils, and so all of these things that we would cook for the iftar or the breaking of fast. So grocery goes up, and then right before you'll see a peak, just before Ramadan starts in grocery. But we're also shopping for Eid gifts. So coming back to that point around sort of, what do we see in terms of fashion and apparel? Yeah, people are shopping for clothes, they're shopping for Eid gifts, they're shopping for food. So all of these things spike, right, in that shopping period. And then they have the summer sales festival, and then they have the winter sales festival, right, which starts around December. Same process, same strategy.
Christmas, right?
Christmas, yeah, correct. And then that runs into January. But, you can get some great deals around that. So that period of the summer and the winter sales festival, your Ramadan periods, your sort of White Wednesdays if you're online for us, and other retailers like ourselves. And then you've got the other festival. You've got Diwali, you've got Holi, you've got, all these different mixes of cultures and festivals around some of these. And Diwali,
but it's important to know it, right? Especially if you're in the B2B business. You have to approach your client based on the calendar.
And you have to understand how they will be gearing up for those specific events, right? So, and then how can you enable that, and how can you, support that?
Dubai is the place where lots of people from all around the world actually come for Christmas and bring their shopping habits here. At the same time, many people who reside in Dubai leave, taking their usual consumer habits away. So do you see how retailers can adapt to this specific period, how they can capitalize on these trends?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're an online shopper, you're an online shopper, right? So if, you're coming in, you want to see who are the local players here, what discounts can I get, because I'm in a discount period now, right? The winter festival is on, and again, that varies across the shopper range. So if I'm a value shopper, or what we used to call back in London price chiseler shopper, he's looking at chiseling the price down, right? Okay. So they want to look at where are the best discounts and where can I get those best discounts for.
I'm the one.
What, you're the one? Yeah. You're a price chiseler?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, we have a value retailer. We have a number of concepts like, you're looking at Max and you're looking at sort of Centrepoint, where we are true value retailers, right? So people coming in, going online, cheap pair of jeans, you'll see us there, right? Cheap top to buy, you'll see us there. So if you're a luxury brand buyer, then Dubai is the place to come for luxury brands, right? You can get those luxury brands, very, very bespoke areas, whether that's in, Dubai Mall or Emirates Mall, they have specific areas just for those luxe brands. So that tourist economy, is obviously very important.
Do you see there are operational challenges for the retailers during these spikes? I mean, I remember from my time in the UK, you get these notifications everywhere across all your kind of channels, social networks, and the emails, like 5 days to order so that you get it before Christmas, 4 days before the last order to get it delivered before Christmas. Is that like similar story for the Middle East or operationally?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we have a planning period that goes pre any, season that we know, or month or weeks or events that we know that's coming. So we have a whole range of planning meetings that talk specifically around resource. And again, I'll give you an example of that. We've gone into our sales season now, right, which starts around the end of October, and it'll run to the first week in November. Now we have our customer success teams. So we have our teams that look after, people who need support on delivery or have complaints or, just want to call in and say what's happening with. So we gear up for those specific periods. And, for example, White Wednesday, we might have people working 24/7 on shifts, right? So it's constantly, because you'd be amazed at the people who shop at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then something goes wrong with the process and they want to call somebody, right? So you have to have people in place for that, right? So when we're running, for example, the sale period, we'll have people right around the clock. We'll resource up for that. So, and then obviously we'll resource down, because there'll be a peak. Even when that sort of period that we run, we have a peak where we start off in the first week and it just goes massive. It's a massive peak. And then after like 8-9 days, it drops a little bit and then it brings back up again. So resource planning for those periods is done pre the event.
Yeah, and you can heavily experience this in the very beginning of September, back to school time.
Back to school, massive. Again, it's
like
another one.
Huge.
Correct.
Everything's
Correct.
changed when
Correct.
it's back to school.
Yeah, back to school is massive. It's one of the biggest periods in the sort of calendar. I think globally as well, right?
Giving us the ideas of what are the typical mistakes or the misconceptions or the challenges which the retailers go through, which the local technology providers or service providers need to be aware of to cater better for the businesses like the one which you're managing.
In terms of the pitfalls setting up a retail media business, some of the key ones that I would say is that you need to understand the data infrastructure needs, right? So what do I mean by that? So I'll give you an example. So if you're only setting up data on your online transactions, that only might be 15% of your sort of transactions, right? So if the other 85% of your transactions are offsite and you haven't brought that offsite data into the data infrastructure, your consumer insights will be flawed, right? So that's one of the common mistakes. I'll just launch. We got on-site, we'll just go with on-site. But you have to remember that that's flawed insight or a limited insight that you can give back to your partners.
So Hill, is it mistake or it's just lack of technology?
It probably links to the next point, right? So that quick drive to get revenue. So let's just launch. We'll just launch with on-site. Yeah, we'll launch with on-site. We'll unlock some of that low-hanging fruit. We'll get some revenue, and then we'll just push and we'll do everything else. But again, we've got to go back to there's a commitment to the user experience on the on-site assets. But you also have, and it goes back to the earlier point, you also have a commitment to your brand partners in terms of what you're serving back as insights. Because the strength of what you give back to the people that work with you, your advertisers, your brand partners, is critical. So keeping that as part of that process. So for example, if I want to be able to show an advertiser that has been with us for some time, let's talk about a trade partner, and his ROAS was at sort of X%. If I want to now show increased ROAS, I have to show the gap between what they were currently doing and what they're now doing. What they were doing in existing relationships and existing sort of programs, but what they're doing now. So how do you provide that? Understanding that the insights, that you provide back at a customer level within the framework that you want to provide that has to be comprehensive. So making sure that that data infrastructure is correct
Mm-hmm.
and it's comprehensive. There are occasions where retail media networks have launched with one or the other and not both, right? So that's a really important one to make sure. Some of the other areas is like focusing. There is a temptation to focus on short-term revenue, right? So again, we touched on the point earlier. Let's just get something live,
Mm-hmm.
and let's just flood it with ads. Again, going back to the earlier conversation, you could be in a situation where you're showing an ad that competes with your local brand, and that's going to cannibalize your e-com revenue. So again, carefully thought out approaches. Don't just put any ad anywhere, because you have to make sure and safeguard the right product is shown to the right user at the right time, but not cannibalize a potential for the user to buy your own owned product at a higher margin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there could be a temptation. Let's get ads up anywhere. Not relevant. Just serve ads.
Yeah, but I believe it's mainly because of hype around retail media, because we can't ignore this fact, because it's booming, right? The retail media, just those two words, everybody's saying
Unlocks
like,
investment. Yeah, it's a bit like
Yeah.
AI. If you make
Yeah,
AI,
yeah.
you'll get investment. Retail, yeah, we'll get investment. Sure.
So the things which I noted is the data infrastructure is one of the major challenges, and some of the companies are failing to get the comprehensive picture, the blend of the off-site and on-site data. Oftentimes, retailers drive for the quick revenue rather than the long-term result, and that can be a dramatic mistake.
Correct.
Then, oftentimes, lack of the commitment to the user experience in favor of the commitment to the revenue, which again, in the long run, is definitely not the optimal solution. Also, oftentimes, inability to build or to set up the comprehensive systems where they are actually even unable to execute on the long term and unable to foresee something that is going to happen after tomorrow rather than today. And let's look a little bit into the future, maybe even a longer view, say 3 to 5 years. Now, I think even the leading retailers, they generate still single-digit percentages of their overall revenue through the advertisement.
Single, you mean one, right?
But many of the smaller guys are probably doing that. But leading, I'm keen to hear your insights. What percentages the leading or more mature retailers should be aiming for today, given the market benchmarks, and what they should be aiming for in 3 to 5 years, and what challenges and the opportunities you foresee on the 3 to 5 year horizon?
It's a really good question. I think, I believe if you look at most in this region I'm talking about, right, and without divulging our own sort of internal percentages, but I'm talking generally across the MENA region, people are moving into this e-com space. The revenues are anywhere from sort of 7.5 to 15% on the e-com side. So the bricks and mortar is still the vast majority of their revenue, right? Where do I see that? What should it be in answering your other part of the question? With the tools that we have available today, it should be easily 30 to 40%. It should be surpassing, your online should be surpassing your retail, so your bricks and mortar stores. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's not there. Serve rule-based targeting or manual rules that you set up for a user group that keeps them engaged and for longer, and gets them through that funnel through to the conversion, right? So if we look at that sort of awareness bit and getting them through to consideration and getting them down to a conversion, these are manual based rules that you set up for different user groups, and it's different rules for different user groups, whether you're a new user or a returning user or a high value user. Previously, that's all been done manually. And so to get that now, you have an opportunity with AI and ML to completely automate that process. That's just one area where I see the trends going in retail, right? In addition to that, you're talking about personalization on scale. If you think about what we have in terms of personalization, now what are we using? We're using sort of, deterministic data, we're using, probabilistic data, and we're still using a lot of manual processes to try and get that right. Now, again, with the use of AI, you can automate at scale personalization across the channels. So I think once that becomes more accepted, and once they've figured out what data signals that they need to use in order to create segments, in order to understand customer journeys, in order to maximize on those journeys, you're going to get massive scale, and it's going to, the people that move into this space quickly are going to be the early adopters will be first mover advantage. There's a user group here you've not even thought of. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to the point where retailers are using AI to take the manual rules that we've set, automate that process, use machine learning then to create new user groups and the new rules that sit within the new. So now you've got more engagement time, you've got more user groups, you've got more conversion, your conversion then goes up. So that's what I believe is the next phase, one of the next phases of where we will see the revenue percentage from e-com increase and start at some point will surpass the bricks and mortars revenue. We're new in this journey. I think, we're very keen. We're always learning, and we're very proud to be working with yourselves. And we're really looking forward to, expanding on this relationship. I think this region it presents many opportunities, right? I think we are, if you look at the life cycle of any product, we go introduction, growth, maturity, decline. So we're really at the introduction stage for retail media in this region. And what we also have is an exciting opportunity where you have companies, retail outlets, retail organizations that are in the 0 to 3 years of their retail media journey. Mm-hmm. You have companies like ourselves who are just starting that journey. And then we have retail businesses that haven't even thought about retail media, or have thought about it but haven't done anything yet. And when you look at those three different areas, there's opportunities in all three, because if you're a version 1 company and you've been 0 to 3 years, you're now looking for the second generation of tech, because they had the first generation tech. If you're looking for people like, if you look at organizations like ourselves, we have looked at all the different tech, and we're now coming in, and then you've got that whole group who just not on the radar yet. So it's a real exciting space to be in. I think we're leading the way in what we're trying to do as differentiators. Our differentiators around our data, our differentiators in what we're trying to build on. We're not just building personalization, we're thinking beyond personalization. We're going into curating experiences. That's a whole new game. So if somebody is shopping at Viva and they're buying health foods, how do we connect fitness first and create a very favorable package and target that individual that's buying health foods to go to fitness first, and then go to Carluccio's and receive a deal on a low-carb meal.
Power of ecosystem.
Correct. So we believe we're not just building personalization, we've gone beyond personalization, and we believe our unique selling points, our differentiators will be when we're curating experiences to our users, the ability to target them within those experiences then is where we take it to the next level. So we're really excited. We can't wait to get going. Our launch is coming up very, very soon of our MVP. And yes, thank you for inviting me to come this afternoon.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. It was great, very insightful.
Thank you.
We are looking forward to see you again and again soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.